and they will be posted on our new district YouTube page. You'll all get a survey tomorrow with how the sessions went and all of that. You'll get the links to the YouTube page, but you can actually get to the YouTube page through the district website now. So let me interject just for a second. So Keely, I'm not showing you have audio yet. If you don't have, let's say, a microphone on your computer, you can always call the phone number. Okay, so yes, go ahead and call in and that will be your audio. Okay, so mute your devices when you're not speaking. We're going to send out a survey after today to give us feedback on how the sessions went and how the technology worked for you. This is still relatively new, so your feedback on how to make these work better is going to be critical. These are very interactive. So with a group this size, which is an ideal group for this training, we want your questions. We want you to share your ideas, share what's working in your own clubs. Hold on just a second. Okay. So Keely, if you dial the phone number that came with the email, you should be able to get in on the phone. Folks, give me 1 second here. There is a phone number I'm going to send her to call. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm sending her by chat.
I'm here. I'm on my phone.
Oh, it's working. Okay. Thank you.
I can see. Yeah. Computer.
Can you see the screen though also?
I can see you.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. So, recorded session, very interactive. So just as we go through this, ask your questions, share your best practices. And at this point, we're going to do introductions. So let's see. Let's start with Linda Dodd.
Good morning. This is Linda Dodd from Carlsbad. I will be the president in 2017.
Awesome. Thank you. And Ronnie.
Yeah, this is Ronnie Wright. I will be the president on July 1st of the Las Cruces Rio Grande Club.
Awesome. Thank you. And Keely.
My name is Keely. I'm public image in this coming year.
Awesome. Thank you, Keely. And let's see, Chris?
Chris Woodland from the Carlsbad Club, co-chair of the PR.
Excellent. Thank you. Ryan?
And Ryan Williamson, I'm also in the Carlsbad Club, but I'm co-chairing the PR with Chris.
Excellent. Thank you. And Betty?
This is Betty Young, and I'm with the Rotary Club, and I'm going to be membership chair July 1st of 2016, president in 2018.
Excellent. Thank you. Donna?
Donna Padacci from Del Norte, and I'm setting it on this because I'm going to be chair of our annual fundraising gala this year.
Oh, congratulations. And it looks like Daniel joined us. I'm going to unmute your phone. Daniel, can you hear us? And if so, can you introduce yourself, please? Daniel? Okay, not yet. Mike, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Mike Lemoyne, and I am part of the Rotary District here in Albuquerque, and I am the head of our PR and marketing.
And Mike is going to kind of be a co-presenter with me. Okay. Daniel, can you hear us okay? And if so, can you introduce yourself? If not, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about club public relations. And for a lot of this, I'm going to be sharing documents on the screen. If the sharing doesn't work, let me know, because sometimes I'll see things that you don't. So I'm going to start with, can everyone see this, our strategic priorities and goals? Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the shorthand version of Rotary International's strategic plan. You can get it from Rotary.org. And I have to say, when I first saw this a couple of years ago, I was struck by how significant public image and public relations are. So here we have this circle, and it says Rotary's strategic plan identifies 3 strategic priorities supported by 16 goals. Okay. So the 3 strategic priorities are support and strengthen clubs. That seems obvious. Focus and increase humanitarian service. Again, we are a service organization, as that seems obvious. But the 3rd strategic priority is enhance public image and awareness. So it's like one of the top 3 things that Rotary thinks about in terms of being a successful organization is public image and awareness. And yet, we still struggle with this, in my view, and I think in many of our views. But I find it interesting that it's considered one of the top 3 priorities, and it's been this way for a number of years. It's just a question of how do we transition it from being a priority to being good at it, right? So I just wanted to bring that up. If anyone asks, why are we doing public relations? There's a lot of ways to answer that question, but you can also tell them that it's one of the 3 strategic priorities of Rotary International, which I just find very interesting. So I just wanted to show you that. Was there anyone that did not know that? Okay, so if you all did know it, it was just reinforced. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the Public Relations Committee manual, kind of talk about the high points. Mike is going to interject with experiences that he has, and I do want to hear from everyone here as well about best practices that you've been involved with, questions you may have, things you may have seen from other clubs. We're also going to look at a second document called Be a Vibrant Club, which goes to all of the incoming club presidents. And I like using that document because it's kind of a very high-level view of what an effective club is. And we'll see in there how important public relations are to having a successful club. So, and as I said, as I bring these documents up, just ask questions, interject at any time. This is an interactive session, okay? So, right here. So everyone can see this. This is the Public Relations Committee manual. So you can all see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Notice that the dates are 2016 to 19, so it has just been revised. If you happen to have an earlier version, please download the most recent one. And the fact that they say 16 to 19 suggests that it's likely not going to change next year. But at least for the next 3 or 4 years, this is going to be kind of our guiding document for this. And I find these manuals very helpful. When I was club president a couple of years ago, some of you know me really well, I sifted through every single one of these committee manuals because even though I was going to have committee chairs and committees, I wanted to have an understanding of what they do and how they need to work together, because the committees in our clubs are not supposed to be working independently. They're supposed to be working interdependently. So I, as the president, felt like I really wanted to understand all these different committees and what their purview was so I can kind of help organize it. So, so there we go.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
Just real quick, where do you download those, man? Where's that available at?
So the Rotary.org website.
Okay.
So that's the website for Rotary International. Their search engine is a lot better than it used to be. So if you just go to the search engine and type in Public Relations Committee, it'll come up and you can download it. It's a PDF file. Same thing with all the other committees, service projects and membership and all of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. It used to be really hard to find anything on Rotary.org. In fact, people would say, never go to the website and do a search. You're actually better just going to Google and Googling Rotary and manuals, but they've really improved their own search engine. So it's a lot better now. So as you scroll through this, even in the, just at the beginning, it starts with a one-pager on your job as the Public Relations Committee Chair. So I think a couple of you mentioned you were going to be the committee chair or co-chair. So it has a one-pager that kind of outlines your responsibilities. And I do want to start by mentioning that it's not like your club has to do it the way that these manuals recommend that you do. So you may have different people doing different things. It may be parts of different committees. So these are not intended to be like, this is how you must have your committee function. Having said that, there may be some, as we go through this hour, you may have some best practices in your club about perhaps a different way you have your committees set up that still gives you effective public relations, but maybe not in not in the structure. So this is not to be a mandate, it's more guidance. So you'll notice it has responsibilities of all the committees. So things that should be true for any committee at the club, whether it's public relations or anything else. Make sure that you know what the goals are, like what is your committee trying to accomplish, so that you can be looking at how we're progressing on our efforts, whether it's public relations or membership. Making sure that you're working with the president-elect and other members of the board. So again, you're not independent, you're interdependent. Create subcommittees as needed. Now, if it's a small club, it may be hard just to have a committee, but whatever your public relations committee is, you may find that there's different pieces to it. So typically for public relations, you may have two different pieces. One would be, let's say, public relations with the traditional press. So getting press releases out to the local newspaper, radio, television spots. And then you may have a different person or group looking at social media. It's not like you have to have different groups, but typically there's very different skill sets and experiences to help with traditional press versus social media. So that may be one way you set up your subcommittees. And then in terms of the specific committees, so these are things we're going to really focus on for this hour. Create awareness of club activities. Well, awareness goes right back to the Rotary strategic priority. It was public image and awareness. I mentioned to Mike Lemoyne as we were preparing for this assembly that I've always felt that Rotary struggles with creating awareness and getting the word out, because it doesn't necessarily align with being service above self. Service above self suggests a certain degree of humility. Like, it's not about us, it's about what we're doing to help others. So people who are humble tend not to let others know that they're humble. So if we don't get the word out because we're not thinking about that, then people are not aware of what we're doing. And if they're not aware of what we're doing, then we may be missing out on other opportunities to either help with other groups or to recruit members who want to be part of an organization that serves others. So I think there's a bit of a balanced challenge with service above self and humility and getting the word out. And I think in the last couple of years, we've found ways to get the word out that don't come off as being proud and bombastic and it's all about us, because it's not about us.
Well, and
Jeffrey,
let me.
I think of it as leading.
Go ahead.
We're putting examples of how to behave in leadership out community. And I see it as that versus shooting.
Right. Good point. Thank you. Mike?
Well, and I was just going to add that I think those of us in positions who are influencing the PR and the images of our clubs, it's our job to educate on why we're doing things. Because if we just say, hey, we're issuing a press release, I need a picture, because we are service above self and Rotary, our members will be like, no, I don't want recognition for this. This is my way of serving. But when you can show people that by doing this press release and by doing this picture, we're going to be able to get more involved and do better things for whatever portion of Rotary we're serving. And so I think there's really our job is to be able to educate our members on the importance of some of this stuff and the why of what the reasons we're doing it, so they understand it's not to shine the spotlight on you. It's really so we can shine the spotlight on the club and the great things that we're doing, which will hence bring more exposure and more visibility to what we're doing. Just the biggest challenge all of us have as nonprofits and Rotary is fundraising. Why do we need funds? To execute our missions. Well, if we don't let the community know what we're doing and why, if they give us money or they participate in our events or those types of things, it really hinders us in our end mission. And so it's our job to educate our members and to help them understand the reasons why we're doing this. And I think the more we do that, I've been doing this a lot in our club, which tends to skew a little bit older in age. So a lot of our members aren't really on social media and those types of things. And so I've been doing just a lot of, part of the PR is not always the external, but it's a lot of internal education on why we're doing things the way we're doing it.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, if I can ask folks, I'm hearing some feedback. So if you're not speaking, if you can mute your mics, that does happen sometimes. And then, but just make sure that you unmute when you want to add to the conversation. So a couple other things about the Public Relations Committee: support the work of the membership committee. So again, there's interdependency here. Especially not, I think the obvious relationship is in recruitment. So if people in the community hear about what our clubs are doing, that may entice them to find out more. But it's also a retention tool. We get the word out about what our club is doing and we feel really good about that. It helps our own engagement. It helps to see, the Rotary Club did a wonderful thing for this charity, and look at what we're doing with Polio Plus and all these various things that we're doing. Getting the word out and getting some positive feedback as a result of all of that public relations is an engagement tool as well. Learn key points for talking about Rotary and use them when speaking in public. So we always have an opportunity to talk about Rotary when we're in different groups, and whether that means wearing our Rotary pin or having our elevator speech so that we can explain to people pretty quickly what Rotary is. It's very helpful in public relations. Social media, Mike talked about that. We'll talk more about that over the course of the hour. I personally really like social media because in most cases, the communications are very much informational. There's not a lot of, look at how great we are. People may imply that we're great, but it's just information. It's some pictures, it's some testimonials, it's showing what the recipient charity is doing with the work that we've done. So there's something about social media sometimes that kind of allows information to get out there without this implication of, it's all about us. Make sure your club's image is in line with Rotary's public image. I find this very interesting, and I'd be interested in some of your experiences with this. We really, in a sense, have two public relations challenges, or opportunities, if you will. One is we want to promote our club, but we also want to promote Rotary. We are all part of this large 1.2 million plus organization that does wonderful things all over the world. So we really have, in a sense, perhaps two messages. One is, here's what Rotary's about. And if you go to Rotary.org, they have a lot of materials you can download to kind of help craft the message about what Rotary's about. But we also want to convey what our club is about. Does that make sense? It's kind of like it's not necessarily the same message, but we kind of have to look at both of them.
Jeff, I agree. I think we have to bring it home, so to speak. Rotary is a wonderful organization, but at the same point, you have to localize it.
Right. So I think that adds to the necessity of having a well thought out, concerted public relations effort / committee, because you really kind of do want to look at both of those. Sharing the stories with the local media. And by the way, and we talked about this at PETS and at some of the other trainings, when we talk about classifications and, you know, what would be a nice skill set to have in our club that we may not have in our club, if there's someone who is either in the local media or has great relationships with the local media or knows how to write a great press release, that's a great, what I would call the strategic addition to the club. If you don't have that person, it becomes a lot harder to use at least the local press to get your word out. You still can do your own social media, but having someone that is in with the local media is a really great, almost a strategic asset to your club. And whether it's a large center like Albuquerque or a smaller one, having in with the local media is a great advantage to have. And finally, becoming familiar with Rotary's resources. As I said, on Rotary.org, they've got a plethora of public relations materials that you can download and use. They've got videos, they've got pamphlets, they've got all sorts of recommendations and guidance for how to get the word out about Rotary. So just a few of the things about public relations at the committee level. One thing I should mention is that currently our district does not have a public relations person or committee. The last few years, some of you, let's see, we've got a few folks from Carlsbad. So Linda and Tammy, you both know Mike Anaporta very well, correct?
Yes, sir.
So Mike was the district PR guy, and he's wonderful. He had ins with the press. He was great with social media. But earlier in the year, he became the executive director for the Carlsbad Foundation. So he had to step back. And as far as I know, he has not yet been replaced. So what that means is that there's not a resource at the district level officially to help you and your club with public relations efforts. That doesn't mean we can't help you. It's just that there's not like a counterpart at the district level that is there to equip you and help you. Having said that, you can certainly talk to me. You should feel free to talk with your assistant governors and your lieutenant governor if you need help with public relations. And then, as I said, you know, if you go to Rotary.org and just browse around and search for things, you'll find a lot of help for public relations. But I did want to make sure you were aware that the district does not currently have a Mike Anaporta, who I think did a great job, but we've not yet replaced Mike.
Jeff,
yes.
This is Donna, and I might suggest, particularly in communities that are smaller, or if you don't have a PR committee or many people familiar with it, look around and see if you've got a marketing or public relations company in your community that you could call and just say, look, I'm looking for a little pro bono help.
Yep.
A great way to, number one, educate them about Rotary, but also to get that expertise that may not be in within your club.
I love that, Donna. Thank you. You know, we talk in strategic planning that we don't always have all the resources internally to do what we want to do. What a great opportunity for a strategic partnership. To work with another group that can help in an area that the club doesn't have that particular expertise. Same thing with event planning, I find. You know, if the club wants to put on an event and doesn't have someone who's an expert in event planning, another great opportunity to partner with a company in town that does that, and maybe they can do it pro bono. Same kind of thing. Great opportunity to look outside the club for help. I like this page next. This is also common to all of the club committee manuals. It's called Get Connected. And it's almost like if you can understand every one of these circles and all the lines, and you can kind of manifest them in your club, then you're going to have a pretty good club. Having said that, there's a few things in particular here that I think are very pertinent to public relations. So, for example, things like connect online up here. So if we have an opportunity to share our message online, it gets out to a lot of people. And if we're in social media, the word gets out sometimes virally. And with the traditional press, we don't often get that kind of viral explosion of information. So, connecting online is certainly part of public relations, and a few other things in here as well. Share your service accomplishments. So Rotary Showcase is part of Rotary.org. It's a way to communicate things that the club is doing. We talked about that during the grants management training as well as the club foundation committee. Rotary Showcase is a bit of public relations because we're getting the word out to other Rotary clubs who may want to partner with us or may want to help us maybe with something that we're not doing so well. So there's a lot of aspects to getting the word out throughout this entire kind of get connected diagram to think about.
And Jeff, another suggestion, the Rotary groups, the online Rotary groups.
Yes.
You can go in with PR questions or fundraising questions or whatever. There's a phenomenal resource there from clubs who have been through it. You can look for clubs of the same size and they can give you some really great suggestions and ideas.
That's exactly right. I really like those discussion groups. And what's also nice, it's been a while since I've been in one of those groups, but if I remember correctly, you also get notifications. It's a message board. So if you're part of a discussion group, you can set it up so that anytime someone posts, you can get a notification, let's say by email, there's been new posts to your discussion group, so you can kind of go back in and see what people were talking about. So yeah, those are great resources. Fantastic.
That can also drive you crazy. I get about 30 a day.
I can only imagine, Donna. Okay. Now we get into this Be a Vibrant Club. And again, every committee manual has this page about being a vibrant club. And I'm going to shift over to the actual document. I love this document because it's short and it's got pictures in it, like this. And it's short. I've got about a 20-minute attention span, so I can get through this. And it's really kind of a high-level view of what makes a club successful, and it goes to all of the club presidents. But anyone who's on this call, I would recommend you can download it from Rotary.org, and you've got some great ideas in here. And what I wanted to do is walk through a few points in this that get into public relations. And again, keeping in mind that it's one of Rotary's 3 strategic priorities, that there's quite a bit in here about that. So I'm just going to scroll a bit to find these. Communicate openly in your club. So one of the things that's interesting about public relations, and we talked about this last hour, we looked at the club administration committee, which is really more of the internal workings of the club, including communication. So communicating what the program is going to be next week, or communicating when the service project is going to be within the club is often within this club administration committee. But if I'm communicating with our club on a service project, I can just as easily communicate with the community about that project. So here we have, share information with members and check in regularly, pair internet savvy members with those who are less experienced to help them navigate the website and social media, frequently update your club website and social media accounts, etc. The point here is that if we're going to get the message out, we've got different audiences. We've got our membership, we've got the community, we've got potential members, we've got other clubs who may want to partner with us, We've got some of these strategic partners, these other companies that may help us. So however we get the word out internally, we may want to have a concerted effort to get the word out to these different audiences. So maybe the public relations group takes on the charge of getting the word out externally, and the club administration group, the ones who are looking at communication within the club, they're working with public relations to get a similar message out to the membership. Does that make sense? I felt like I was rambling a bit, but do you see the connection between the two?
Yes.
I guess the notion with communication is you always communicate with the audience in mind. So public relations has a role of that. Getting the word out to the membership has a role in that. So this is one of those areas where there may be a concerted effort to work together. And for me, I would say service projects are maybe the perfect example of that. The membership needs to know we've got a project coming up, in part because they may be involved in helping with the project. But I may also want to share that information with potential members in the community. The message may be different, but it's about the same activity. So that's maybe a real life example.
Well, Jeff, let me jump in real quick, because I think one of the challenges we face is to get our other club members involved. I personally can't go to every event that our Rotary Club is doing, and there's great things happening out in Rotary. And so one of the things I'm doing, you can do it on vistaprint.com, but I'm getting little business cards made up that will just say, please help us with content. And I'm just going to put an email address on there. So when I hear our group is going to go do pancakes on the plaza, I'm going to see who's taking that group. And then I'm just going to give them one of those cards and say, hey, take some pictures and email it here. Because one of the challenges we face is knowing everything that's going on and getting the content. And we can stand up in a meeting and say, hey, send your pictures here. But if we know, okay, somebody's going out to do this club project or those types of things, and we're able to stay in front of them and use them to be able to create content and stuff like that. Again, it's our job to keep it on our club's mind. And so we don't have to do all the work, but we have to strategically be able to get some of that content, some of that stuff back. So we have the tools to do the sharing and those types of things. And so that's one of the things I'm working on, is getting these little cards, just so when, Bill's going up to the pancakes and, hey, Bill, email me your pictures here. And I don't know if it'll work, but I've got to try something to be able to get more stuff in.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Okay. All right. I'm going to get out of this Be a Vibrant Club document, go back to the Club Public Relations Manual. But as I mentioned, please take a look at this. It's a great document. I think it's one of the unsung heroes for Rotary documents, just in terms of what makes a successful club. This is interesting. This is something I found last week on Rotary.org. This is the result of a survey that Rotary International has recently done on public relations. Again, I would recommend you download this and take a look at it. There were some interesting insights here, and I noted a few of them before we started the seminar. Let me see if I can quickly find this. When asked to choose the 3 most significant barriers to public relations efforts, so this was a survey that went out across Rotary. We didn't all get it, obviously, but this was not unique to, let's say, one club or one district. When asked to choose the 3 most significant barriers to PR efforts, respondents report lack of interest from the media. That's interesting. Lack of funding for public relations efforts. Lack of training. And I would add to that, and support, because to me, training is as much support as training. And lack of ready-to-use materials. So I want to talk just for a minute about these, and I'd also be interested in your, if you kind of share these challenges. The third and fourth, lack of public relations training and the lack of ready-to-use public relations materials. When the district got together for its strategic planning meeting earlier in the year, and when we didn't know if we were going to have a chance to replace Mike Anaporta as the district public relations chair, these two were the reasons we said we needed to have a public relations effort at the district level. Where are clubs going to get public relations training if we don't provide it? Maybe they get it from each other, but that would be icing on the cake from our standpoint, because not all the clubs have a robust public relations effort. So we thought if there is a district committee, that district committee should help equip the clubs, helping them understand how public relations works and things like that. And the other one is provide them with the materials. Provide them with brochures and pamphlets and cards like Mike was talking about that clubs can use if they don't have the internal resources to develop those materials. So I found these two interesting only because we said we needed to do it and we haven't yet done it. But my hope is that we do. This assembly is like the first foray this year into helping clubs with public relations, but my hope is that we can do more than just this. So that's just from my own perspective being on the district leadership team. And I'm still hoping, I'm hoping we can get a committee to help the clubs do these kind of things, because this is one of the areas where we struggle. This first one I find very interesting and may not be true for all of us, but my own experience with the media is that the reason why there's a lack of interest is because they don't understand what we do. It's almost like for those of us in advertising, we don't usually get a sell the first time. It may take 10 to 12 events to get someone interested in us. And maybe this lack of interest from media is because we don't have a sound strategy in how to get the media interested in what it is that we do.
Jeff, I would add another factor there. The media, and particularly print media, have been so cut back in staffing, and they are so restricted in space and what they are told to cover. And our message is not in that hierarchy of priorities, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think that some of their problems, even when you have a reporter who is interested, they can't get the space. It's a very serious sea change, I think, in terms of any kind of print media. And that's why I know more and more clubs are going to various social media, because they just can't get it in. They're smaller and smaller and smaller.
That's a great point. And it seems like there's more interest in the sensational story, which is not always positive.
Amen.
than the less than sensational stories that groups like Rotary are providing them. So
exactly,
that's a great point.
Yeah. I do know that I'm on the board for Leadership New Mexico, and the gal, Patty Comco, who's president, has a very good relationship with the Albuquerque Journal, and I was amazed at all the articles that she was able to get printed in the Albuquerque Journal from time to time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the connection, is that you've got somebody that you know on the newspaper. Now, having said that, I do have a guy here in my club who is he's kind of a retiree. I told him to run some stuff for Waffle Paper. He has the connection. Nothing got done. I think because our paper was going, we're not going to do that. That's not sensational enough. So they didn't do anything. I was kind of disappointed. So I think a lot of people are going social media, but the problem is you're not going to get all the people. Half the people don't take paper. Stuff. It all depends on what they do.
Yeah. So I think, again, I don't want to harp on how critical social media is, other than the fact that you don't have the buffer. I don't need to get, an editor to say, yes, let's print that. And it has that viral potential that the traditional press typically doesn't have. So, and then the second one, lack of funding for public relations efforts. That also is interesting. If public image and awareness is one of the 3 strategic priorities for Rotary, then you could assume that there's as much investment in it than there is in the other two strategic priorities, but that's nowhere near true. Public relations does not get a lot of funding and support, even though it's viewed as a very important priority for Rotary. Part of it is just cost, and but there is cost, but maybe not to the same degree as, let's say, some of these big international projects or some of these other things. But funding is often viewed as, are you really supporting this, or is it lip service? And so I think the fact that the respondents mentioned there was lack of funding reinforces this notion that in many cases, public relations is kind of lip service. We talk about it, but we're not highly invested in it, or it's kind of like an afterthought. Let's see. 2 years ago, I was club president, and I had to go through all of this, and I went through PETS and strategic planning and all of that, and I was trying to reconcile this whole public relations effort area. And my conclusion, and this is just my personal conclusion, is that it may be one of our three strategic priorities, but it's not why we exist. So we don't exist to do public relations, we exist to serve. But public relations is a key strategy to accomplish why we do exist. So maybe one reason it doesn't get the support is because we're not a public relations organization. We're a service organization. We're a membership organization. But public relations is one of those key strategies that will help us accomplish what it is that justifies why we exist. Again, that's just my view. I don't know if anyone has a different slant on that, but it helped justify why it's important. But we don't exist to do public relations. Does that jive with anyone?
Sure.
When I was in PR, Jeff, the biggest issue I had was we never talked about what Rotary did. I always dealt with the community page people at the papers locally here.
Right.
And that worked very effectively. I provided the pictures and the releases and everything. And then they would publish it in a Thursday paper. But with respect to, nobody wanted to talk. I mean, I remember years ago when I suggested, why don't we tell the community what Rotary is and what we've done for the community? It's not bragging. I think there's a mental image that we can do good work, but we're not supposed to talk about it. And that I find kind of doesn't gel with getting the image of Rotary out. So
Yep.
I now budget automatically for PR. So
Rotary International, that used to really be a policy that, it was sort of kept quiet. We don't brag. But I think that has drastically changed at the international level. And I think they're very supportive of districts and clubs doing PR today, unlike the way it used to be, because I share your frustration. It used to drive me crazy.
This part of the survey results is interesting. This is about the lack of ready-to-use PR materials. I am very pleased that Rotary has a lot more materials that you can download and use that fit very well within the kind of the PR umbrella. They've got these videos called Humanity in Motion, Eradicating Polio. These are nice, if you, let's say you're planning a meeting and your speaker bugs out at the last minute. These Rotary videos are nice things to show if you're needing a speaker, but they're also good for public relations. In fact, I think the International Convention this past year in Korea, they had it online. You could watch it live, and it wasn't just you didn't have to be a Rotarian. So I do think that they're finally getting the message, but I also think that it's taking a while to make public relations as vibrant and as effective as we all want it to be, just because it's, rolling a stone up a mountain. I think it's just taking us time. So,
Hey, Jeff.
yes.
I guess just kind of my perspective on the media interest part of it is coming from, is I went to journalism school and I worked for a newspaper while I was in college, and I've also, I interned as a PR guy for a baseball team. So I think kind of the primary thing that I don't know how exactly or what the right approach was, but the key to getting the media interested would be kind of going to your sales thing and figuring out a way to actually sell a hard news story to the media. And that could probably do a little bit more to get some media interest in there, because it's a lot easier for them to write a hard news story to say, here's what happened, here's why it happened, and here's the end result, rather than just kind of putting out general soft news where they have to try and figure it out what happened and why it's happening.
It's a great point. And in fact, that triggered another thought that came up. We talk about this during the Rio Grande Academy sessions that we convene. As much as the press often doesn't get excited about things we want them to cover, they do get excited about a scandal. And so if God forbid something happens with one of the members of the Rotary Club, or there's a perception that something bad happened with one of the members of the Rotary Club, they'll jump all over that. And all of the good we're trying to do of getting these positive messages out can be ruined by a bad story. And I think one of the other roles of a public relations committee, and I hate to say this, but I've heard from enough people that this kind of makes sense to me now, is to have almost like a contingency plan or a emergency plan in place in case something gets out. If God forbid something happens to one of the members of our club, how are we going to the best of our ability, control the message? If the press controls the message, they may end up saying a lot of things that may not be true. How transparent are we going to be? Who's going to be the point of contact to make sure that any interviews or any messaging that gets out is consistent? So one thing that I've seen public relations committees do is at least have some, whatever you want to call it, emergency plan or contingency or something, almost like an insurance policy. You never want it to happen, but God forbid if it happens, here's how we're going to, from a messaging standpoint, handle this thing that got out. Have any of you had experience with that or have anything to add to that notion?
I think it is very wise. Our club many years ago, I mean, it's probably 12, 15 years ago, we had a very bad situation with one of our members, and we certainly got queried about it, and you need to be prepared for those kinds of things.
Any other thoughts on that? So just, again, something, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I've thankfully we've never experienced it since I've been in Rotary, but I've had a lot of clients who have experienced those types of things, and I think it's the most vital thing is what you said, Jeff, is to have that one point of contact, because if you get 3 or 4 people trying to be helpful and, give whatever the response is, and it's not congruent, it just can be disastrous. And I also think that, in those situations, the easiest statement to give is, this has come to our attention and we're looking into it. We have no further comments until we've done the investigation, because, or something along those lines, because it buys you time. The other thing is we would never want to jump to the conclusion of a member without really knowing the full story. And so we have to buy ourselves some time in disaster type situations, and those types of comments really do buy you some time. It gets the spotlight on for you, but it's not like we didn't respond. Because I think one of the worst things the media loves to be like, we reached out to so-and-so and they had no comment. And then they play off of that. So we don't ever want to put ourselves in that situation. So even just knowing that one person will be the guy to say, we're looking into this, once we've looked into it, we'd be happy to, kind of reach back out. that just buys a lot of time and is very, very important in those situations.
Okay, we've got about 9 minutes left. There's a few other things in this club public relations manual that go into a little more depth that I thought would be worth us covering. Promoting the clubs. We talked about promoting Rotary International and the club, the idea of wearing the pins. And it's interesting, you know, this year the logo changed, that now the word Rotary is next to the wheel. And that was like a really big deal when they did that. It was kind of like McDonald's with the arch. But the notion was that a lot of people didn't know what the wheel was. So they said, we're going to add the word Rotary and the wheel, at least that way when people see it, it's going to be more hitting them in the face. Okay, this is Rotary. Okay, I get that. So they changed the logo, and that was a public relations decision that they made to add that. Things like the Pints for Polio, which the district does now, these big district-wide initiatives have great public relations potential. You know, the larger the effort, the more likely it's going to get some press, perhaps. So the idea that the entire district gets involved in these kind of efforts certainly help getting the word out. And things like a lot of our clubs have Rotary vests, or things that while we're doing our work, there's Rotary images around that people can kind of get the idea that this is a Rotary effort, or maybe when we're done with the project, up goes a Rotary plaque, things like that. So just displaying Rotary. A lot of people will display in their offices, they'll have like a four-way test up on their wall. I think that's great. Not just from a public relations standpoint, but just to represent that that's how we live ethically. That's how we do our jobs, and that's how we live our lives. So some good ideas about that. Here's one we talked about earlier. Consider your audience and tailor your message to it. So again, I think part of a good public relations effort is to really understand the audience. And it's not one big audience. It's different smaller audiences. And find a way to kind of craft the message with your different audiences in mind. And it may be that the message itself is different. It also is likely going to be the delivery mechanism to get them the message may be different. So young people, you know, social media is pretty much it for them. And in fact, things like Facebook, and Mike is an expert in this, but they're not even interested in the social media that we like anymore. They're off doing Snapchat and all these other things. If they don't get a text, they're not going to answer their phone. So if millennials are a group that we're trying to get the message to, the message and the delivery mechanism may be very different than getting it out to the traditionalists. And I think we have to be savvy enough to know our market and to know these target audiences to find a way to get the most penetration we can to them, both the message and the delivery mechanism. So, and we have a couple minutes. I'd like to see if there's any feedback or ideas or observations you have about target markets and crafting the message and these different delivery mechanisms.
Hey, Jeff, let me, if you don't mind, I do have a few things pulled up on Facebook that I'd like to share with people that may be helpful.
Go ahead. And I'm still getting, I don't know if it's only when you're speaking, Mike, but if everyone can mute their mics when Mike is talking, for some reason I'm still getting feedback, and I'm gonna mute myself as well.
All right. So I just wanted to go through a couple of things with you guys here on Facebook of what we've kind of worked on. So, and also just to, so when we're posting on Facebook, so this was our Rotarian of the Year. One of the things you can see is these are called hashtags. And the two biggest hashtags for Rotary are hashtag Rotary International and hashtag Rotary. And what that does is it takes our content and it puts it in a timeline that if anybody searches on Rotary International or Rotary, they would see our content as well. And I don't want to promise that you're going to get a ton of feedback or shares, but there are people who search to see what's going on, and there are other clubs from a PR standpoint that are using that as content. And so 2 tips for you is I always recommend trying to put in hashtag Rotary International or hashtag Rotary with the content you're sharing on Facebook, because you end up in that big stream of content for Rotary. The other thing, though, is if you go and you search in Facebook, you can see, let's see here, let me expand my screen. Sorry, one second. Try to make it easier for everyone to see. So if we come right here, trying to do stuff live is always the challenge. Not way too big. All right, let me come back over here. Sorry, guys. Just bring this back down. So if we come and we go into Facebook and we search right here, and we just start typing in Rotary, you can see right now there's 94,000 people talking about Rotary International. So it's great to get our message in front of those people. Rotary Youth Exchange. So if you just type in Rotary, you can start to see kind of what people are talking about. But if you're looking for content for your club, let's say you want to post, you want to get the word out, but you're not sure what to post, well, you can just search that Rotary International, and there's great content. So right here, this is one we're going to be sharing on our page tomorrow about Father's Day. Rotary International's already created that content for us, so we can just use it and share it onto our page. And it's a way to have content going out without having to create it all yourself. Another thing is you can boost a post. And so if we come back here, let me go back one thing. And when we're talking about there's not really a budget for PR, I think part of the challenge is it's very expensive sometimes to do PR. Well, social media has helped change that. And so on all the pages, you can see there's a button called Boost a Post. And the way I explain Facebook is it's like a pond. And if you have a small stone that you drop into the pond, you get a small ripple. If you use a boulder, you get a bigger ripple. Well, the way Facebook works now is if you don't put any money behind a post, only about 1 to 3% of people see it. So what we do is we boost a post only for like $5 even, and you can get some traction. So this was, again, our Rotarian of the Year. We put $10 behind this post. But look, we were able to get in front of 863 people. Our page only has 300 likes. So we were able to expose Rotary and Rotary del Sol to another 500 people, and 55 of those people took actions. And so it's not a budget constraint to be able to do these types of little things to strategically get your posts in front of more people. And so look, we got 47 people who liked our post. And what we have found is a lot of these are our own members, because they don't go to our Rotary Facebook page, but when we pay, our message even gets in front of our own members, and they're able to engage. And it's, again, another way to engage the club of what is going on outside of where they may be. The next thing here is we try to do a good job, and Jeff does a really good job for us, of posting. So here's a new member that we inducted into the club. Putting that out there, and I think it's important for the club to see that. I think it's important for the new members. But again, we also want the community to see, oh, wow, other people are doing this. And so just some more content. And then the last thing here is the great thing about social media and Facebook in general is anything can kind of become content. So would we ever write a press release about Jeff leading us through this presentation this morning? No. But did I snap a picture and put it on our page? Absolutely, because Jeff is somebody in our club doing a Rotary activity right now. And so the great thing about Facebook is we can be a little bit more raw. We can be more spontaneous than traditional media. And then this is one of the things we're going to be doing in our own club, but Facebook will allow you to do Facebook Live, which is video now. And so what you'll be seeing on our Facebook page is we're going to be doing short video clips. Like during our meetings, we have speakers, and being able to record some of that stuff live, and it just posts to our Facebook page. This is an example of one I did for my own business. But we can do those things very, very spontaneously to, again, put content onto our pages. And so I just kind of wanted to share some very quick tidbits. And of course, we would invite you to like our page so you can kind of see what we're doing, but also feel free to reach out to me if you guys are needing social media type stuff and internet stuff. That's where I'm an expert at, and I'd be happy to assist and give some guidance or answer any questions on that type of stuff. Thank you, Jeff.
Sorry. So I took a picture of this for the grants management training because we had like 30 or 40 people. And I posted it and said, welcome to my Rotary world or something. And I was getting all these comments back like, it's like the Brady Bunch. They were bringing up 60s television shows and all that. But it's a great way to kind of let people know. So anyway, it is, we're 2 minutes past our allotted time. Are there any final questions? We kind of gave like a high level view, went into some deep dives in a few areas. Every club is different, but public relations, if you ever need to convince the club to invest more in public relations, you can always go back to that Rotary strategic plan and say, look, this is one of the 3 priorities for Rotary. If we don't have a concerted effort in it, we're not going to be successful. So any final thoughts or comments before we close?
No, thank you very much, Jeffrey. I appreciate you putting your time and effort into this. I've learned a lot. Thanks.
You'll all get a survey. Let us know how this went and how we can improve in the future. With that, thank you all very much and have a great rest of your Saturday.